Today I'm going to be making a bowl out of resin and various woods that I've collected over the last year and a half. So I have these big pieces, but for this project all I'm going to be doing is using the small pieces, which most of them came from pin turnings, a couple of bottle stoppers that I've done, the cheese board that had the multiple colors and different species of woods that were on there. So I recruited some help because I like symmetry, so I would have ended up trying to get a uniform pattern going across this, and that was not the goal of this project. I wanted it just to be any and all textures, any and all patterns, any woods at all, even including these acrylic pieces, which I think there were 3 total. There's the camo one. I was going to make a dad joke about you not being able to see it, but I couldn't think of a quick one on the fly. So there's the green one, the blue one, the camo one, and those actually look pretty cool in the finished product too. Once this is all glued up, use some activator to spray on here, and that just makes the super glue, the CA glue, bond right away. So that way I wouldn't have to wait, and I can cut off this excess. And then from here, this thin piece, which I just used as a base layer for gluing up, gets glued on with some wood glue to this bigger, thicker piece, which the goal of a thicker piece, I probably should have used 2 of them actually, so that way the worm screw could go and hold on to something of substance, which ended up the worm screw did go through the project once I started turning at the end. I didn't realize it was as close as it was, so be it. We'll just call it a drain for if I turn it into a vase or something like that. So from here I just took some thin sheets of flexible, I think it's called cricket paper. I don't know what that is, but it works. So before I could get the centerpiece in, which I was using to fill the void so I wouldn't waste as much resin, I had to cut off these little excess pieces. And I was hoping with trial and error that this centerpiece I could wrap it in saran wrap, and that way the resin would not be able to adhere to it because it's plastic, and I'd be able to pull it right out when it was finished. I was completely wrong, and this is a terrible idea. So if you're listening, please do not use saran wrap and expect it to just come right out of your resin once it's set. Terrible idea. And here, used lots and lots of tape and trying to fill out any and all exposed areas because I did not want to have the resin seep through into the container like it did on one of my other projects. So it's not a good idea to do it the way I've done it. You should probably get definitely get a piece of wood or something else that's firm and has a straight, solid piece to it, because I had a whole lot of jagged edges when I got finished, and it's just wasting time. So when I got finished, I had to end up sanding more than I intended, or if you turn it on the lathe, you're just going to be turning more. So lesson learned, I don't want to do it that way again. So what I did here, just get the resin mixed up, poured it in, shook it to make sure it filled any and all voids, put it in the pressure pot, and then left that overnight. So when you get it out here, again, you can see my goal of having that centerpiece come right out with no problems never happened. So pull it out of the container, strip off all the loads and layers of excess plastic wrap that was left over, the dollar store duct tape, painter's tape, and it took me quite a while to get all this stuff off. So lesson learned. And you can see here that jagged edge specifically, it's kind of a gray piece right there. If I left that, once I turned it, it would send big shards all across the basement. So I didn't want to do that. I've done it in the past, and some of those pieces actually hurt when they hit you in the shoulder, the neck, that kind of stuff. But face shield will protect you, but where it hits all your exposed skin does not feel good. But went over, hit the bandsaw, cut off this extra piece, and I wanted to cut off this excess from here, but my bandsaw is way too small to do that. So I figured I'd put it in the vise, and since it's resin, I thought it would be more like plastic and I could use the hacksaw, but lesson learned there too. Don't waste your time with the hacksaw, just get a normal wooden handsaw that will go through it a little more easily. So this process saves me a lot of extra time, and this is what it looks like after that. But from here, that gray looking area again is really concerning to me, so I was debating what I was going to do, and off camera, since it was nighttime, went outside so I wouldn't have this dust all over the basement and house, and turned off those rough edges. So that way it's at least smoother and I'm not going to have those big shards coming at me. But again, make sure you wear a face mask and any kind of respirator whatsoever when you sand this stuff. It's a really fine dust and it gets everywhere, especially in your lungs, which sucks. Your snot will be multicolored for a couple of hours after this stuff. Too much information. Anyway, got some more help and drilled a hole in here so that way I could put the worm screw in. And then you'll see as I'm doing the initial rough turning here, those pieces were all over the basement. They were flying a good 10 feet past me, behind me, ends up inside your shoes, inside your shirt, and everything else. So probably shouldn't wear a button-up long sleeve shirt when you're turning. That's not the best idea, especially sleeves near a lathe. That in hindsight was a terrible idea, and glad I didn't catch it on anything. So just kept turning for a while, got the rough shape, and I didn't want any kind of weird contours or unique contours. I just wanted a simple bowl shape and then let the various types of woods and the acrylics just show through that way. So I let the wood do the talking, not the shape of it. So you can tell when you're on the parts where it's just resin, you get long strings like this, but if it's wood, then you get the kind of wooden shavings, obviously, since it's wood. And here, decided to use a Forstner bit this time. Didn't want to waste my time turning all the inside out with the lathe. But got the big center punched out like that, then went back with the carbide tools and roughed out all the other excess pieces. So there's still a little bit of saran wrap that was stuck around on the inside. So once I got there were a few cavities, just little holes and kind of kick out along the way. So just went back, took some CA glue, filled those voids. There weren't too many of them. Once you do that, spray some activator on there, and this stuff will set up in no time at all. So literally within a minute, you can put it back, start turning, and get all those excess pieces off if you want. Or here, I just used the sanding adapter on the drill. Started out at 60 grit, worked my way up to 1,000 grit. And you saw what it looked like, kind of rough shape beforehand. And this is what it looks like after you sand it up to 1,000. So it's not bad at all. You can start to see it taking shape, see the unique colors, textures. And then just took some, what is this called? Mineral spirits, there we go. Thanks for the awkward pause. Some mineral spirits just to clear off any of the residue, sawdust, any of that kind of stuff. So you can see it cleans up pretty well. From there, got my micro mesh pads, put those in water, just rotate, do each side, go through all 9 of the pads. Pretty sure those go up to a good 12,000 grit, something like that. So really smooth, and for this kind of finish, it's going to work really well. Went through each of those, clean it off, then I went back to my high friction polish, which you've seen me use a couple of projects here recently that I really enjoy. Again, this stuff, you don't need much of it. You just put it on your shop towels and then hold it on spots where you really want it to shine, and it'll heat up and then give it this kind of glossy finish like that. So there's the outside. It's taken shape nicely. The inside, I did kind of do the exact same steps. I didn't show you all those. But here you can see the saran wrap left these voids, and that was kind of disheartening because as you're turning, this thing wants to bounce around, and I was worried that now that I'd already finished the outside that it was going to bounce around, kick too much, and just didn't want to turn it with those big gaps in there. I don't trust my tools and my abilities or lack of abilities to keep it from messing up too much. So I got some 5-minute epoxy and realized that I've had it a little bit longer than I intended to have, so I had to crack open the case with some snippers, get it mixed up, and from there just go over back to the lathe, use this stuff, and it's just 5-minute epoxy, so threw it in there, let it fill those voids, came back about 30 minutes later once it had time to set, and then turned it. So it's not quite as clear as the resin is for the rest of it, but it certainly serves its purpose. So once that was finished, went ahead, sanded it down, did the micro mesh pads, put the high friction polish on it too, and the only thing left to do at this point was fix the base. So just put it on the table so that way I'd make sure I kept it flat versus me trying to sand it by hand and making some little weird odd shape to it. So worked my way up through 1,000 grit sandpaper yet again, Then broke out the micro mesh pads after that. And those started off doing just the first 2 pads with my hand, because you're not spending a whole lot of time on these. This is just fine tuning at this point. Then put them down to make sure I kept the flat edge. And here you get a shot of it and see it cleans it up pretty nicely. And that's without doing any kind of friction polish or anything like that. Since it's the base, I wasn't worried about it. And here we go. And you can see this acrylic piece, you'll just watch it kind of, that window that comes through. I like the way that and some of these other pieces with the end grain showing just shimmer. And then just enough of those gaps that we were showing, when the resin fills those, it makes a little window into the inside. So I like it. And you can see, or I guess you can't see since it's camouflage, the last acrylic piece right there on top. But here are a few still photos of it.